Netflix has some really bad movies, like a lot of bad movies. And so it can kind of get hard to tell what's a good movie and what's a bad movie. And in today's video, I kind of want to go over that, talk about what are some of my favorite movies that are on Netflix, and just as well as some hidden gems as well, because there's a lot of really good movies on Netflix that just you wouldn't really find just by looking on it. But before we continue, like and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it supports me greatly, but I won't waste anyone's time. Let's just jump into the video. So how I kind of did it is the first half of the video is probably some more of the iconic movies that maybe not a lot of people who watch this video have known about. And then when I get onto the later part of the video, that's kind of more into the hidden gems that probably not a lot of people know about in general. And so if you want to get into that, like if you know a lot of these movies I'm about to talk about, skip ahead for around halfway through the video and you can get to some of the more unusual movies that I really love that's on Netflix. Kicking it off, easily one of the best movies I've ever seen on Netflix is Old Boy. That's a movie. I'm not going to explain anything about it. Go in knowing nothing. It has this reputation of being like one of the most iconic South Korean films ever made, and there's a good reason behind it because you always have these expectations for these kinds of movies, and you get to be hearing that a lot of people call it a masterpiece, and so you kind of go in like thinking like, okay, it's not going to be as good as what people say, and it absolutely blows you away because it goes in different directions that you would have never have thought about, as well as having genuinely one of the coolest fight scenes ever made. For the people who have seen this movie, that hallway fight scene, I mean, you can't get better than that. And the fact that it was all done in one singular take, it's genuinely a masterpiece. And like I said, go watch this movie if you've never heard about it because you won't regret it. I feel like not a lot of people talk about Room, which it was probably one of the A24's more earlier films that they ever made. But I remember thinking that when I watched it for the first time, I was like, why aren't people talking about this as much as they should be? Because genuinely, people don't talk about this movie enough. It's such a kind of like a loving film in a way, but it's also deeply dark and depressing, especially behind like the implications of what happened in this movie and all the stuff that these characters have to go through and like the terrible stuff that like the terrible decisions that characters have to make to try to get out of these situations, as well as the second half of the movie is way different than what I was expecting because you kind of get this idea what the movie is going to be like, and then you get to the second part of the movie and it goes a completely different direction that I was not prepared for at all. I really love that they went and did it like that. But it's really is just it's a nice movie to watch about just like a mother and her son just trying to live in this situation, especially seeing the son's point of view because he grew up his entire life is in that room. And so it has this kind of specialness to it that you just seeing this kid who this is his entire world and how he views things. And it's really wholesome in a way. Like it really does bring you a smile to your face. And then you get to that ending which will just absolutely rip your heart in shreds. If you want a good tearjerker of a movie, watch this. Now, diving into the world of horror movies, I have a few that I want to talk about. The first one is Creep. I really do mean this. Like, this was one of the first horror movies I've ever watched that truly scared me. Like, this is a terrifying film. It's intense. It's one that there's certain scenes in this film that make you hold your breath and really make you terrified for these characters. And it's a really unique movie because it's this found footage movie, which I know that's going to turn off a lot of people. Trust me, this one's good. And it's made for basically no money. Same with a lot of found footage movies. And so it has this really interesting concept behind of it. Again, I don't like to go too deep into some of these kinds of movies because they really are better knowing nothing about it. And I'll just say there's this wolf mask that's in this movie that's so creepy, and then there's this story that a character tells that really freaks you out, and it's a perfect film of you never have a sense of safety. You always feel like you're in danger at some point in this film, and there's always unique things for why you feel in danger, and that's what I feel like works so much about this. Going back to the land of South Korea, we got The Wailing. The movie is 2.5 hours long. It will definitely make a lot of people not want to watch this movie. And I'll admit, I was hesitant for a long time because I didn't want to watch a 2.5 hour long South Korean horror movie. But man, let me tell you, it is worth all 2.5 hours. It's a type of movie that you think you understand what kind of horror film it is. You think you know what kind of subgenre it is, what kind of movie it's trying to be about, and then it just flips it all on the head, and you have no idea what to believe, who to think is good or bad or anything. And it's not a lot of like genuine scares, like jump scares. It's more of just this creepy aesthetic and just this kind of unnerving nature to it all. And I think it really does build up to have such a good climax to this film. It's such a genuinely perfectly well crafted film. It's 2.5 hours long. It really doesn't feel like it's 2.5 hours. It feels like it just goes by like a bullet train. It works so perfectly well. And I genuinely never thought I think I would love a horror movie quite like this. And again, if you enjoy horror movies, just find time to watch this 2.5 hour long film because trust me, this is another film that is very much worth it. Upgrade isn't a really like a legitimate horror movie, but I still say it dives into the realm of horror enough to where like you if you wanted to look for a horror movie, then sure you can watch this. If you wanted looking for a good action movie, then watch this too, because I think this is very much more action than it is horror. What makes this movie so well is truly is how Lee Winnell, the director, has fun with the camera and uses it in really unique ways. Because the whole movie is this guy gets into an accident and these people they paralyze him, they kill his wife, and he's going out for revenge. And he's able to basically gain control of his body again because of this little stem cell that they put in the back of his neck, and it starts to talk to him, and he can do like really insane things with his body, and it works really well because of how much fun they have with this concept. Again, like it really is a fun movie to watch, and like the action is so much better than I ever thought it would be. Plus, the budget for this movie was a really tiny budget movie. It was like $3 million, I think, and it looks fantastic. I mean, the guy who made this was also one of the creators of Saw, so he knows how to do a lot with very little. It's just a fun movie that you can just watch for 90 minutes and just have a blast with it because of just how much they lean into the concept and how much it works. Now, I'm going to be going into some of the more kind of obscure films that I've really enjoyed. The ones that like the hidden gems that you probably wouldn't ever really watch if it wasn't for videos like this. And the first one I want to talk about is Peanut Butter Falcon. It's this genuinely like I love to use this word a lot for a lot of movies, but it really does work well. This wholesome movie that it makes you smile the whole way through. So Shia LaBeouf befriends this guy with Down syndrome, and they kind of slowly start to become friends the longer it goes on. And it's a fun movie to watch. It's a good crowd pleaser, something that you could watch with your family and have a really good time. There's never really any like big risk that it takes with this. It always like plays it safe and plays it the right way. And I think how they handled everything with it was so so well done, and like it's not gonna be one of those like masterpieces or cult classics 20 years from now, but it is going to be a movie that people are going to just slowly start to forget about. And it really sucks because this movie does not deserve to be forgotten about. People really should go back and rewatch it because I genuinely think that this is one of Shia LaBeouf's best movies he's ever done. Another movie I really enjoy is The Discovery. So this is actually probably one of my favorite concepts for a movie out of all of these films on this list. Basically, this guy discovers, like, proves for a fact that there is an afterlife. And so everyone starts, and so it's like a few years later after this discovery, and they start to try to uncover more of the truth about what is happening with the afterlife. And this is another movie, if you know Jesse Plemons, probably one of my favorite actors who shows up for a movie for like 10 minutes, steals the whole show, and then leaves. Civil War, for example, his scene by far will forever be the most iconic part of the movie. Same with a movie like Game Night, where he was kind of just a minor character for the most part the entire movie, and every time he showed up in this film, he was always by far the best part of the movie, and this is no different. It goes down really interesting concepts, and while I don't think the ending is perfect, I think that it was still well enough done that I was really enjoying myself by the end. I really liked it by the time the whole film was over. And so, like I said, I really suggest that people should try and watch it because it is a really good film. However, what if you want to go into a bit of a more documentary approach to this? I suggest A Trip to Infinity. Probably one of the more fascinating and entertaining documentaries I've ever watched. Basically, the whole thing is about numbers and infinity itself, and different thought experiments about infinity. And there's a lot of really cool sections in this film. I don't think it was as good as what it could have been. There's moments where it's kind of dragging out, like maybe they could have cut this all out. But I think that it is a very fun documentary to watch. And if it doesn't sound interesting to you, just try to watch some of the sections. There's a thought experiment about I don't remember exactly what it is, but the Infinite Room Hotel. Probably one of my favorite thought experiments I've ever heard about from a documentary. And it's a fun, just an interesting documentary to think about, like all these different ideas about infinity and concepts that I really think that like really made me want to explore more down those thoughts. And some of the writing that I've done kind of did grow from that seed of thought from A Trip to Infinity. Alone is the perfect kind of just classic thriller that I really enjoy watching. There's nothing unique about this film. There's no interesting groundbreaking concepts about it, but it's a type of thriller that I really just love. It plays it by the books. Characters actually make smart decisions, which I think a lot of you would love. People aren't making stupid decisions, especially at one point. There's one scene in this movie where another character is introduced, and he could have very easily have done just what every other movie does and just go down the stupid decision route, but he actually is smart with it, and he actually thinks logically, and it gave me so much more respect to this movie, as well as having like a genuinely like really entertaining final battle. It's this perfect type of thriller that it's safe, nothing unique about it, and I love it before it. In case you want to know what it's about, this woman's being followed by this creepy guy. He eventually kidnaps her, and she's locked in his cabin, and it kind of goes off from there. Again, nothing crazy original, nothing like groundbreaking concepts, but a good solid thriller that I really enjoy watching. Now, finally, I'm going to end this off with probably one of my favorite action movies ever made. The Night Comes for Us. If you know what the Raid movies are, you've seen them or at least heard of them. the majority of the cast that's in the Raid is in this movie. It's just a different director. It's not the same guy that made the Raid movies. But it really does feel like this movie kind of takes the brutality of the first Raid and bumps it up another notch. I'll say this. If this movie didn't get an official MPA rating, but if it did, no doubt it would be NC-17 because there's some insanely brutal things that happen in this movie. Like things that I still think about today. And like I haven't seen this movie in years, but I still think about it a lot because it's that perfect type of like insanely like ultra violent action movie that I really enjoy, that I know a lot of people really enjoy. And I can't recommend this movie enough. Go watch this film. It's a Netflix original, so it should be streaming anywhere. I don't know how it works, but it should be every country has it. At least I think so. But I really do recommend watching this because it's such a perfect action movie. If you're just looking for an insanely good action movie that will just entertain you, go watch this and then go watch Upgrade because they both work for the same reasons. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, do you agree with me? Disagree with me? I mean, what are your Netflix suggestions? I mean, are there any movies that you love on Netflix that I didn't talk about? I'd love to hear all your thoughts about it. And I mean, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. I mean, if you want to see a part two, I'd love to make another movie just talking about good movies that are on Netflix as well as other streaming services. I mean, I can talk about Max, Hulu, Peacock, Paramount Plus, all those streaming services that have some really good hidden gems. And that's really all I have to say. I mean, all these movies are very good movies. Go watch them. I highly suggest them. And that's really it. So until next time, it's movie talk. See ya.